Hey everyone, welcome to SpawnCast episode 304. John is super sick, so you'll probably hear me a little more than him right now.
I feel
We got
fine.
Sound like
I
shit.
sound like
today
Steve-O.
on Jackass, I guess.
Yeah,
This episode of Jackass.
this guy's about to drink mustard or snort it.
My voice box is frozen, everyone. So I gotta give it 24 hours, hopefully, and that'll be good.
Yep, and I guess we can go around otherwise. So Dreamcast guy, what you been up to? Anything good?
Lots of Dead Space. I platinumed it. I did 4 separate playthroughs. I beat it on Impossible. I upgraded every weapon. It's been a fun week of just all Dead Space.
Not bad. MVG?
Yeah, I've been playing Dead Space as well. I'm on chapter 10, so I'm getting close. And once I'm done with that, I'm gonna jump onto Hi-Fi Rush because I heard people really like that game. So
Not bad. Nate actually has power, so that's always good. He'll be here to weigh in on some things. I guess.
that's right.
Yeah.
You didn't ask
we'll try to.
Steve-O. You didn't ask Steve-O what he was doing.
I'm trying to save your life, man.
Yeah, man, save your
I beat
voice.
Dead Space. It was good. Go ahead.
Solid. All right,
Famous last words.
I'll open with at least a couple quick Discord questions so we can knock them out of the park. What franchise is struggling the most? Far Cry, Sonic, or Halo?
Ooh.
I mean, it's got to be Halo by a long shot.
That's actually a pretty tough question
yeah.
to answer. I mean, Halo's thriving when you look at like the multiplayer in terms of gameplay. It's struggling when it comes to campaign delivery. Sonic seems as though it's found its footing with Sonic Frontiers a bit, and Far Cry just feels formulaic. So it depends on how you really want to quantify the question in terms of struggling.
Far Cry
Say
sells.
Halo.
Yeah,
Say Halo.
Far Cry sells. Like, even a bad selling Far Cry is still selling millions of units.
Mm.
Not bad. And what new take or genre for Kirby would you like to see?
I'd want to see them expand more upon the 3D element that we saw them introduce with the last game, but I would want to see it on a grander scale where
Like a
we
first-person
have more of
shooter?
an open world exploration than the linear 3D approach.
Yeah, I think bigger. It'd be interesting to see bigger because I mostly played the 2D Kirby's back on Game Boy specifically. So I think it'd be interesting to see it keep the Forgotten Land was the biggest yet. So let's go bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad. So recently, I guess we've had a couple interesting things go down. I know a lot of us like to rag on live service games and constantly point them out as an issue. And we're, I guess, starting to see a lot of that kind of come around as just tons of titles are getting knocked out. I mean, we got the list here so far of like Apex Legends Mobile, Battlefield Mobile, Crossfire X, Dragon Quest, The Adventures of Dai, Echo VR, Knockout City, and Rumbleverse. So yeah, it looks like Sony's still currently planning on as many as 10 live services games coming out over the next 5 to 6 years. But do we think this kind of burst of just shutdowns might, I guess, halt some of these companies' ideas on moving forward with live service games?
I mean, it's a really interesting question, especially for Sony, knowing how heavily they're investing in that sector at the current time. And you would imagine that maybe some of the projects that are still very early in development, they may be giving a second look, but we know a lot of those games are deep into development, if not on the precipice of releasing within the coming fiscal year for them. So those titles have to come to market. But as a consumer, you definitely have to approach them with some caution of whether or not they're going to be available for the long term. And out of the announced games that Sony has put out there, you'd have to imagine that The Last of Us Factions would likely be the one to find a strong foundation and really retain its base. But you have titles like Twisted Metal that have entered development and is rumored to be a live service game. Is that going to have a player base that remains engaged for the long term? Or is that going to be one of those titles that we see shut down within the first 24 months? And, Sony definitely has to approach this very carefully. They are investing heavily into it. And when you see this mass amount of shutdowns, you really have to be questioning, is it worth that hundreds of millions of dollars of investment at this time? Or if you should maybe pivot and implement a single player mode that you can retain for the long term and sell and appeal to that base that you have built up with God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, and other strong single player titles that the PlayStation has become renowned for over the generation dating back to PlayStation 4.
I think the problem is because there's been a bunch of leaks talking about the Horizon Forbidden West Horizon spinoff games as a service, and it looks like it's going to be like Monster Hunter. You and other Horizon people are going to break stuff apart and craft with it. There's been a lot of talks about how The Last of Us factions games as a service is going to have characters and story and cutscenes along with crafting and PvP and stuff. I think my problem with games as a service and the reason so many of them are hitting the wall is because they're just such big time sinks. Every games as a service doesn't want you to play any other game. It wants you to only play that, only spend their microtransactions, only level up their skills, only want to play their patches. And I think that people are kind of burning out of that. Like whether it is hardcore or casual, I think that people enjoy the spice of life. Indie games keep getting better. AAA stuff keeps getting bigger. I feel like people enjoy the fact you could play 5 or 6 games in a year that are all great instead of one games as a service. That even if it's great, it's still just one games as a service.
I think also to add to that, Max, these live service games have to continue to offer content, and I think a lot of them haven't in a timely fashion, because you have to keep like dangling that carrot and then keep people engaged in your live service game. And look, I don't claim to know anything about some of these games that have been sunset and shut down, whatever, but like at a high level, I just get the feeling that they kind of launched, they were pretty good to start with, but it's that thing where you just have to continuously offer content, and you probably have to offer it quicker than normally what you would think, because man, gamers, they tear through content so quickly. You hear stories about people just racing through games very, very fast. Max, you're someone that that you basically
I chew through a game.
You speed run games basically, right? So we love gamers love content, and if you don't offer pretty much daily content, almost these live service games eventually are bound to just fall away, I think. And you're right, there are many games that are up and coming, and a lot of people just kind of move to something else. And maybe they have a desire and a hope to go back to that live service game, but at that point, it's like, I'm not really into it anymore. I've kind of moved on. So I think that's the difficulty of games as a service, at least the ones that have been sunset. And look, Sony, I think with something like Factions as a live service game, that's going to do really well for them. Let's be honest. It's got the name behind it. It's got it's got Naughty Dog's development as well. But there's no guarantee that in 10 years that Factions is still going to be a thing that anyone's going to be playing. Like, we're going to be talking about it. Could just end up in the same pile as these games that were just removed recently. So I don't know. Like, I think it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting experiment, but its longevity, is really something that has a lot to be desired. I feel like at the most, you're only going to get a couple of good years out of these games, and people are just going to move on to something else at that point.
I think one area that we see struggle with some of these live service games, especially the ones that they are shutting down and sunsetting that were announced this week or even just in these opening months of the year, is that a lot of these games didn't seem to have a detailed roadmap. Is that the content that came to them were very sporadic. Where if you look at a game like Genshin Impact or in other gacha games, they have a roadmap planned for a year or more, where they know exactly at a month what content they're going to deliver, be it cosmetics or new gameplay ideas.
They usually announce
they deliver
2
that.
months in advance, to at
Where
least give you every 2
games
months.
like Knockout City, it was just kind of, here's a season for 3 months, you got a new arena, we'll see you again in a few months, and maybe drop a patch of new content. You're not going to retain your base when you're not forthcoming. And that also comes to the development and the publisher side, is that you need basically a year's worth of content lock and loaded that you will be able to deliver immediately upon launch on a routine. If you can't do that, your game's not going to find the basing that you need to create longevity. So it feels as though some of these games came out maybe premature, where they were hoping to get a base early and that they would retain that base to allow them to develop new content for the game based on the income from microtransactions and such. And they simply never got that user base, and they weren't able to accumulate those type of funds to justify the development of further content.
Were all the games free to play, as
I
far as we
believe
know?
most of them, right? Well, Crossfire, I know you could purchase
It's
the
Game Pass.
Crossfire story, and then there was
Mhm.
the Game Pass
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Maybe multiplayer. Not too sure past that. But
Well,
yeah,
I-
like we
sorry,
were
yeah.
talking, we're talking about like the development side of things. For a lot of these games, I guess kind of like what with Halo has been showing us with Infinite so far, is that the developers. I don't know if they plan for that longevity, at least at first. It's almost like they do just focus on let's get the thing out and then
Ship it.
figure it out afterwards. Because
Right.
when they announced Forge and they started showing it off and we started seeing people playing with Forge producing maps at like twice the rate as the developers for the game, because they were
Mhm.
just coming out with like one map every year or two. Like it was so
Yeah.
slow.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's why I used Genshin Impact as the example, is they have content ready for that whole calendar year, whereas these other games simply don't have it. They're making it as the year is progressing, and you have other studios saying 2023 we already have mapped out, and by the middle of the year we can begin work for 2024 content. If
And
we don't have those microtransactions coming in, hey, we can make a pivot.
And as one of the people who still, I guess, out of all of us plays Genshin, like you can see when you're playing the new zones, like, oh, I've seen that bush before. I've seen like they know how to like reassess
Maybe you're playing too
everything.
much. If you're recognizing shrubs,
No,
you're probably playing too much.
But it's very clear that it's just reused assets. Like it's all
Yeah.
simplified. They're cutting out all like the let's make everything look hyper detailed and completely
Yeah.
brand new, and they're just like let's make it be a thing that's fun, and we don't really care how we get there, and it just seems to speed them up so much faster than other companies.
Well, that's why I've always been impressed, because Final Fantasy 14 will a lot of times tell you their entire year. They'll literally say, like, hey, like what they did with Endwalker, it's insane. They were like, hey, the game's going to come out. You'll have 50 hours of story, 10 new dungeons, hard modes will get unlocked in 6 weeks. 6 weeks after that, they released a mode that was basically Overwatch. Overwatch is basically in Final Fantasy 14. It's called like Crystal Conflict. It's amazing. 6 weeks after that, they released like an Animal Crossing, get your own island thing. Like, and it's crazy they just map it out. But yeah, you're right in that that's so difficult. That requires a huge focused team with a good director and a huge budget, and
Mhm.
not everybody constantly getting cycled in and out. I think the biggest problem with most of this stuff is just that everybody's on contract. It's hard to plan if a bunch of people are constantly going in and out. The revolving door does not suit roadmaps.
Well, the other thing
Yeah.
about 14 is it's a it's a PS3. It's initially started out on the PS3, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
They've had time to master it.
exactly, like
Yeah.
they weren't chasing trends. They created the trend. You know, they were part of that kind of initial batch of MMOs like EverQuest and World of Warcraft and all those games. Asheron's Call, like they were there, like in those days, you know, figuring this stuff out. So they have a lot of history, and they know exactly what they're doing with FF14. But I feel like these newer games, the ones that we just talked about, all of them are kind of chasing trends, man. Like,
Yes.
and they've all failed as a result. You know, if you're a studio building a games as a service game, then man, I hope that you've got deep pockets, you know, and and like Nate said, you've got like at least a 1-year roadmap of what you're going to be, you know, bringing out as far as content, because otherwise you're just going to end up in that pile with the rest of them.
And that's the thing with like Final Fantasy 14 that a lot of these games don't have the luxury of, is Final Fantasy 14 initially failed. They had to
Yeah.
essentially remake the whole game and reboot it, what they did on the PlayStation 4, and then it found success. And that's when it really took off and has resonated with people for, you know, all this time. A lot of these companies like EA isn't going to reboot.
SWOTOR.
What's the game?
Remember
There's been
SWOTOR?
rumors. There's been rumors they want to try and do something. They want to reinvent Knights of the Old Republic, because apparently the Star Wars fan base is they're
Yeah.
focused on single player now.
I didn't hate
Really?
SWOTOR, but you know, it was another
Like-
one of those games.
Like Knockout City isn't going to be a game that EA is going to say, we'll take the financial hit and we'll let you really deliver, flesh things out, and let's see if we can find a base in another year or two. EA's looking at it saying, we lost money. We don't want to lose money. We're shutting it down now and cutting our losses.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to take the gamble and actually commit to it, then live service games may not be the right avenue for your publisher.
I guess last thing for this, historically, we've heard companies like start producing a game and then their like parent company goes, that's going to be our next games as a service. So you need to pivot to games as a service. Do we think it's at all possible in the next year or two that some of these games that have set out as a games as a service are like, maybe we can just not stand up servers and make more money just selling it for $40 as a small scale thing, and that might start happening instead?
I think in some
Maybe,
cases, yes. It depends on the game.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It does depend on the game. I mean, I feel like, some of the games like Crossfire X that has a single player component probably could have just, stripped out the single player aspect of it and then just, relaunched it. But I also feel like Crossfire X is a game that was never going to succeed in any capacity. So maybe they just took it out the back and just shot it,
Some of these just feel like a waste of time. Iron Galaxy and Ready at Dawn both had games canceled.
Yep.
Ready at Dawn.
And they have very talented developers.
Iron Galaxy.
absolutely.
Like 6 months for Rumbleverse.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. And I think the bleeding is not going to stop. I feel like, I'm not saying it's going to happen like constantly, but there's going to be another batch of live service games that will ultimately end up in the same bucket of games.
I think 6 months felt very preemptive of Epic to pull the plug on it. Epic has deep pockets. They could have invested in Rumbleverse further. They could have given it time to really find its footing and see what it could have became. For them to pull the plug that quick, the install base and active base had to be minimal.
Yeah.
6 months is really no time at all when you think for a live service
You
game.
can go make Killer Instinct now.
That's the hope.
That'll be a solid live service fighter that they'll try to make.
Yeah.
It'll last 3 months.
Be good. All right, I'm switch over to some Discord questions real quick. Would you like to see any other old 007 games make a return? They suggest The World Is Not Enough as one of them.
It's a good one.
I
like
have
that
the
one.
dumbest soft spot for 007 Racing. I know that's like everybody hates that game, but they released a 007 driving game where you do a different mission, and every mission you'd get a different stupid car that can like shoot missiles or oil slicks and stuff. And man, it was pretty much just a tech demo for the PlayStation 1. But somebody gave me that disc scratched up as a kid, and I managed to polish it off enough to barely work, and I loved it. I would love that game to come back with some Forza graphics.
Was that the blue N64 cartridge? World Is Not Enough?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the one I want. Yep.
I liked Quantum of Solace. That was running on I think it was running on the Call of Duty engine or something. And I think Treyarch did it.
Yeah,
That was a good one.
We occasionally have people come through the store who brought up that it just felt like Call of Duty, but with 007.
Yeah,
That sounds
maybe
good.
that's why I
Cool
like.
sounding.
Yeah,
I liked, what was it, Nightfire?
yep.
And
It's a good one too.
I like the one on the 360 that Bizarre made. I think it's Bloodstone. It had Daniel Craig was the Bond on the cover.
Yes.
I like that because the driving aspects in the game reminded me of Project Gotham, and I think it's actually the last game Bizarre Creations made.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I think I have that game. That sounds good as hell. I've never played it.
It's not bad.
What kind of fanboy / hater do you get called the most?
I get called Xbox hater constantly.
I get
Even-
called a bold beta cuck all the time, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, people will get mad at like whatever my most recent video is. Like I made a video saying I didn't like the stupid $200 PlayStation 5 controller. There was like huge threads of PlayStation people saying that I'm trying to destroy Sony, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. I'm a guy filming in his bedroom. I don't know what I'm talking about.
There's a lot of people on the Xbox. Sorry, Nate, go ahead.
I mean, I'm called an Xbot if I say something good about Microsoft. I'm called a Sony pony if I say something good about the PlayStation. I'm called a Nintendo fanboy if I like Nintendo 1 week. So apparently I'm a fanboy and a hater of every single thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Tide
it's the
goes in,
same
tide
thing.
goes out. No matter what.
Yeah, I mean, you say one thing critical of a hardware maker, and all of a sudden you're shilling for the competition.
Yep. Sunrise, sunset.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I guess we'll move over since there's been a lot of anticipation, as every single time this happens. But the Nintendo Direct rumored for, this coming week. Yeah, so mentioned by Jeff Grubb in the Giant Bomb podcast. There's just been a lot of things kind of pointing it out. So what do we think? I guess do we think it's happening?
To make the segment short.
Go nuts, Nate.
There's a Direct this week.
Damn.
Oh,
Nice. Well,
Cool.
I'd only seen some of the rumors, and one of the rumors that got me excited was
Read
I
the
heard
note.
Hawks.
Read the note I put in there, Evan.
Oh, Nate might know. Yeah,
I think
it's a little asterisk, so I was gonna hold off.
the two rumors I've heard floating around on Twitter was that of course Tears of the Kingdom gameplay, which I'm excited about, and apparently retailers have been told that Advance Wars might show up. So it sounds like maybe Advance Wars will be a shadow drop at the Direct, which I think would be cool.
Well, yeah, there was that one retailer leak where he said they had cardboard stuff, but that didn't seem right.
Yeah, in the era of cell phones, they also conveniently didn't have a cell phone to take a picture of the sign.
They didn't even run by it at high speed.
Yeah.
So
Oh
it was
yeah,
blurry,
here it
like,
is. I tripped
yeah.
as I
Like a
took the
blurry photo.
picture.
Couldn't even get potato quality.
Oh, does that mean Metroid? Right after Jeff
Maybe.
Grubb cut his hair?
Metroid will not be
Nintendo's
there.
getting that revenge. They made him shave his head like Samson.
Will they show 4? Or will they just talk about the remake stuff?
None
Depends
of
on
those
timing.
things. None of those things are happening. Metroid. What do we think it's all of a sudden going to make an appearance?
How do they deal with Advance Wars? Do they just show it?
I don't think Advance Wars is a shadow drop. I think it's the April game because like we know what March has and May. I feel like last year April was supposed to be Advance Wars, so I think they're just going to slot it in for April this
1
year.
year delay.
Yeah,
Yep.
They just show the trailer and just go finally coming or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even think they say
Deploy on
finally coming. I
April-
think they're just going to date it and be like, here it is.
I'm
Yeah.
excited for that game. I think in a weird way, that year delay has finally built up my appetite where I was like, man, I do kind of just want a Game Boy Advance game on my Switch right now. That sounds freaking fun as hell.
Yeah.
Oh, Nate made that easy.
Yeah, so, I guess we can just bag
I
up.
will say if Metroid Prime, just to add some filler to this fun topic, I think if Metroid Prime is there, the remaster or the remake or whatever the Metroid Prime re-release is going to be, I am super curious about that. Just because I feel like we keep getting really good remakes, so now I'm always curious of like what kind of remake is this going to turn into.
Yeah, but do they really put it out if they're just doing the tiers stuff? Like this could just be the big tiers push.
Even that sounds great to me.
And that's going to be the interesting thing about this Direct is that it's going to set the tone for Nintendo's 2023. If the show comes in and let's just say it's mid, then you're going to have a lot of expectation
mid.
that we're going to have a summer Direct, be it in June or September, that's going to deliver even, more quality. If the February Direct sets a high bar and it details 2023 in a more full state, then you can kind of go towards that June Direct expectation and maybe say, hey, maybe we're going to get a partner Direct instead of an additional June general Direct. So it's going to be interesting how Nintendo approaches the first Direct of the year.
Wait, how many farming games?
Hopefully
3
none.
minimum.
It's going to be at least one.
Metroid Farmers. It'll be good.
I'd play that actually.
I would.
good
Monday
God.
announcement maybe
It-
ahead of their
it-
financials.
Be like Slime Rancher, just with the little tiny brain things. It'd be great.
Oh yeah, the Metroids.
It'd be cool.
Like Monday announcement maybe before they're in financials or Tuesday.
I think it would come after the financials.
And what happens if it doesn't get announced, Nate?
Ooh.
Or are we just going to make fun of you on the next show?
If
Or
there
Stay,
isn't a
stay off the internet that day.
Yeah. Cut
There'll
your hair,
be-
Nate.
just throw the digital smoke bomb and vanish?
there'll be a
Cut your
Direct next
hair.
week.
Cut your hair, Nate.
I do
You
need
prob-
a haircut. It's been about a year.
Prove it.
Yeah,
No.
show us.
Show us.
So,
I was
not-
thinking, we've been talking to Nate for like 6 or 7 years, and we have no idea what this guy looks like. It's insane.
It's true.
Jordan does.
Or
That's-
do we?
Yeah, Fringe does.
And MVG has
Wow.
that picture of him, right?
Yep. I got that
What?
picture of him.
You got a picture of me?
I don't know. I'm making shit up. I'm just going. Like,
What is this?
What's that
I
fun
saw-
picture you
I
two
saw
had
it-
together?
I saw.
Oh
an
yeah,
ancient
MVG
picture.
and I did take a picture together.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right.
yeah, in Australia when you came and visit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
It's because he does that.
I do.
All right,
It's-
all right.
it's
Nate,
up
Nate
here.
just made that super quick, I guess. All right, I guess on 2023, what's your wildest prediction that you think will happen in 2023?
Metroid Prime 4.
You,
Alright,
you just
okay.
said none of that's happening.
I mean, it's a wild prediction, right?
I said it this direct. I didn't say this year.
F-Zero GX.
I'm gonna make a negative prediction. I think that Nintendo's got not a lot in the pipe. I think that they're gonna hype up Tears of the Kingdom, and I think we'll probably get Pikmin 4, and then they're gonna shut up and fade into the darkness. And I think in a weird way, I think Xbox is gonna kill it this year. It seems
Put a
like
couple-
Xbox already taking their victory lap.
Put a couple indie directs out and just
Oh,
be
just
like,
wild-
hopefully
yeah.
you like it.
Wild speculation in general. Mega Man X9. X9.
All right.
That's not
Final
speculation.
Fantasy
That's
9
hopes
remake.
and dreams, John. That's hopes and dreams. That's not speculation.
Hang on, Nate said Final Fantasy IX remake, and he
Oh,
said it with
Final
said it with
Fantasy IX
confidence. He said it with the
will-
confidence.
Final Fantasy 9 remake gets shown and releases before the end of the year, but
I'm writing this down.
somehow it's
timestamp
not the
it.
remake we want.
This is episode 304. So
Yeah, there's been so many. I've been looking at all those leaks about the Final Fantasy IX remake. It definitely, in my opinion, I think it exists. There's like animators that were shown during like a studio tour, and they're like, "Here's our next project, but we can't talk about it." And it's clearly Final Fantasy IX.
Better.
So, yeah.
X9 on the RE engine.
Whoa! All right.
that could actually be cool.
Oh.
And then we got one, I guess for MVG. Why are there so few games where where reflections are visible in a mirror? Silent Hill 2 managed it.
It's just processing.
It's 9 times out of 10 it's a trick, right? Where it's practically just rendering two games next to each
usually
other in
just
a small room.
Right. Or it's just a cube map or something like that. But like most of the time it's kind of Silent Hill did it because
This was
I mean the
awesome.
PlayStation 2 had some really good tech and super fast fill rates. So they could kind of get away with stuff like that back then. But like I'm not saying fill rates are bad these days, but like it's one of those additions I think that a lot of developers just don't really bother with because it does eat up a lot of processing
Yeah,
to
you
do it
wanna-
properly. And
You
if
want
you
to
look
blow
at
your
if you-
mind. Well, looking at those Silent Hill 2 videos where they remove the fog and show you how the game works outside of that. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so cool. Just watching
Like-
it load in.
when we used to play like Warzone and stuff, you'd go into the bathroom and you see the mirror with like the shitty cube map like mirror. You know, like it's just most of the time it's just a trick that saves on processing power.
All right. Guess we'll go over to. So next up, we've got the reports from IGN talking about E3 and the fact that none of the three bigs are going to be there. So yeah,
How convenient John doesn't have a voice when it came time to show the receipts.
Nate
Yeah.
was right.
He'll grovel next week.
I saw those comments in the last week's episode calling John petty.
so with Sony not being there, we expect, right? They just haven't cared in like the
Yeah.
longest time.
They
no
haven't
reason.
cared. I'm still shocked. I just figured they'd show up again eventually, and I think this shows they won't. They're never coming back.
Mm.
And then Microsoft, there was a report from VGC talking about how they're just going to be across the street. Now, historically, that was like if you had the E3 badge, you could go in. But
Yeah.
I think we've been talking about the possibility that they're just like, nah, you got to pay to get into this one, or you got to do something different to get into our little show across the street. So even though they're kind of there, they're not really there.
That's what it sounds like to me. Yeah, because I mean, previously, you could use your badge to get into the Microsoft Theater, but I mean, it sounds like this is going to be a completely separate thing where people are just going to pay to attend it. Outside
Nintendo
of
was the last
E3.
holdout, right? Because they actually had a booth that would be themed.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, but then on Max's point or fearful prediction, I guess the fact that they don't have anything, I guess, is the thing that people are pointing to as to why they don't feel like spending millions of dollars to have a booth when what are they going to show?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's been, that's the report going around that they'll have a light second half year. But it's important to note that what Nintendo will have in the second half, it comes down to whether or not they think June would be the proper time for not even just to demo them, but are the games that they're going to release really worth investing millions of dollars to build the booth, rent the space, and such? And for them, the answer is simply no, it's not worth it at the time. And for the last 3 years, we haven't had an E3 with the booths, and Nintendo has thrived. They still invite media to do demos at their headquarters. They can still get the coverage out. They have the Nintendo Direct initiative. The time of E3 with with the lavish booths and stuff is simply a relic of the past at this point. There's no need to invest that type of money, and with the oncoming recession and fears of recession, companies aren't going to invest tens of millions of dollars into just a marketing spectacle for what, the hype of the fan at home.
Yeah, I agree. I
Maybe
mean, sorry, Max, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm still so sad about it because honestly, it was such a fun hype cycle. You know, the
Hmm.
fact that it was just like the fun. Here's a big display. Here's people physically walking around in Breath of the Wild environment and stuff. I
Behold
feel
the
like,
3 hour long lines.
yeah, I'm sad that we're not going to get that back. I mean, because I don't think it's ever coming back. So it does
It-
feel weird that we've just turned that corner.
Yeah, there's different things about E3 that make that interesting because I mean, initially it used to be just a trade show, right? And then when they started letting the public in, it was almost like a way for the video game industry to kind of legitimize itself as a big player that can compete right next to the movie business. As look, this is video games. We're not fucking around here. This is serious business. We make millions of dollars and we make lots of really cool games, and we invite anyone that wants to share what we do with everyone. And I feel like that's kind of run its course now, especially now that video games like generate so much money, that and the industry is making so much money as a collective, that there's really no reason to have these kind of traditional E3 shows anymore. And I feel like a lot of that is just old relics of the past, and a lot of the industry has now moved on. The other thing I wanted to mention about E3 is Nate and I were talking about this before we recorded our Nate the Hate. But one of the things that I think is interesting, and I always think about this as a developer, is that I think traditionally, studios would take their time out to prepare some type of vertical slice or a demo or something to show off at E3, right? So the gamers could go
To
on the
make
floor
sure it
and
doesn't blow up
yeah,
in front of
and
people.
start playing them. And I think nowadays that concept is just doesn't make any sense anymore because you're literally wasting 2-3 months of development time preparing a very well curated E3 kind of demo presentation, whatever it is, playable experience. And because games take such a long time to build, 3, 4, 5 years, you're taking so much time out of developers' kind of, roadmaps. So I feel like a lot of them are just like, we don't want to deal with this. We just want to keep our heads down and just focus on what we're building, and not worry about it. I think those things really just are things of the past where in the age of millions and millions of dollars in game development and many many years of time, it just doesn't make sense anymore, I feel like.
And I think it's also important to note that fans and the community really aren't losing anything in this case. You're still going to get presentations from Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo around June. Be it, Sony could do a state of play in May, Microsoft can do their showcase in June, Nintendo could do a general or a partner direct whenever they want in June. You're still going to get the announcements that get you excited. And as far as we can tell, companies are still attending E3, be it, some of the third-party publishing companies. So meetings will be taking place. Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft can meet with these publishers. They can still talk about games and development. And that's the important thing, is that the industry can still have those in-person meetings at this centralized time and place. It's just going to be that hype and seeing the booths and all that stuff that's going to be lost. But if that's going to be the trade-off for the industry to kind of refine itself, and maybe next year when ReedPop has more time to really flesh things out, maybe then we'll see Nintendo or Microsoft consider returning. But with the recession and such going on, you can see why these companies are saying we can't justify that type of money in a marketing budget at this time. But in a year, things can change. So I don't think 2023 and the lack of attendance from these three companies is necessarily like a doom case scenario. I think it's just time and place, and it's just wrong time.
Yeah.
So without the big three showing, we don't think there's anything compelling that might pull people in or maybe get them to think like, I do want to still go to E3 without it. Or it would just be like that cultural, I guess, journey as a gamer to be like, I went there even though no one was here. Do you think there'd be something at the show? Like, would it just be, would this be the first E3 where you walk in and there's no lines? You're like, oh, sweet. But then you realize they go to nothing anyway. Like,
I mean, I guess it'll depend on what third-party companies are going to be there, what indie companies. I'm kind of treating it as maybe like a PAX LA, where you're going to have some good stuff on display. It's just not going to be the mecca that it once was.
Yeah.
all right. All right, so I guess we'll roll over to some more Discord cues. What's the deal with Microsoft removing dozens of 360 games and DLC from the store?
I think that they got corrected. I think it was just a mistake, right?
Well, I think
the May thing was a mistake. February 7th is accurate.
That initial list of games that were being sunset is still a thing, as far as I know. What's the deal with it?
Yeah, because apparently, supposedly on the list, like Mass Effect 2 is on there, but not 1 and 3 or something. Like,
honestly, if it's not licensing related, which I think some of them are, a lot of them are probably just, we have an updated version of that game, so you can play Mass Effect with the kind of the remaster anyway. But some of them are a little strange to me as well, like why they're removing them now. But like a game like Daytona, like there's advertising, in Daytona, so I feel like that is something that is a reason for it. But the good news is, I mean, if there's any good news out of it, is you can still, if you purchase them, you can still play them on your Xbox One and Series systems, so you don't lose them forever. But it still sucks though.
I guess my question to you, MVG, on this, and I don't know if you'd have the answer, is that if the games from the 360 marketplace have migrated to the new store that has Xbox One and Series X titles, where Microsoft has seemed to unify their storefront.
Mm-hmm.
If I can buy those 360 games on that, I can access them on my old 360. Why haven't they transferred all of the 360 games, regardless of backwards compatibility, to this unified storefront?
I mean, that's the $1 million question. I couldn't answer that. I don't really know why, honestly.
I just wonder what roadblock there would be preventing that migration.
I couldn't say. Yeah, there's something. I feel like there's a X factor element here that we're not really understanding as far as why they're doing this. But yeah, it does suck that this is happening.
all right. And what is your opinion on xCloud streaming nowadays? Have you guys gone back and tried it? Does it seem to be like a little better or much better than it was, or is it still just like decent?
So I actually have an experience with this. When I went on the road last year for Thanksgiving, and I took my laptop with me, I played Pentiment over xCloud. It was perfect, and that's the kind of game that I think is suited for like xCloud. It's slow moving, it's that kind of game, right? But I also ended up trying another game. It was a first person game. Oh, that's right. I was playing a Plague Tale as well on xCloud, and that was just terrible. So for me, I feel like it's
the timing and stealth in that game.
And to be fair, I was on like hotel Wi-Fi, so I wasn't on a good connection or anything. But I think in general, the technology is decent, but you still have to rely on a pretty good internet connection if you want to play, first person style games. But if you want to play 2D games or a game like Pentiment or something, yeah, I mean, it's pretty good for something like that, actually.
All right. We'll get into the last topic here. Try to close it out with a couple of Discord cues at the end. So PS5's financial report showing the big gains year over year, apparently. 7.1 million PS5 consoles shipped in quarter 3, which is October, November, December of 2022. 50% gain on sales revenue, 25% gain on operating income. And apparently they raised their forecast for the fiscal year to 19 million, up from 18, currently in quarter 4 of fiscal year, January, February, March. And then, another 6.2 million would need to sell. Seems to be relying heavily on the Hogwarts Legacy, PSVR 2 and RE4 and all that. And will the PS5 end up outselling the PS4 lifetime by the end of the generation?
They're still roughly 5 million behind.
It's still really good. I mean, their growth is kind of insane in general. I did a video talking about those numbers because it was just honestly, I'm impressed by the PS5 sales spike. I'm also curious because they said that 30% of the people buying the PlayStation 5 never owned a PlayStation 4 or even played the PlayStation 4, which shows, I think that's showing that a lot of people, like newer gamers, are jumping on PlayStation.
How do they get that data though?
I think it's people. I assume it's people creating first-time accounts.
First time accounts.
Yeah, like if you've
Yeah.
ever played PlayStation, you would have an account. So
So all those bot accounts that
exactly.
that are like, hey, how you doing? You know, those ones. Like, are they all first time accounts? We
First-time
counting
accounts?
those?
I assume it's got to be like those people when you turn on your PlayStation 5 or your Series X for the first time and it asks you to log in. I guess it's probably counting the people who make a new account upon console buy. But I think my theory is that it seemed like a lot of people bought the Nintendo Switch who had never gamed before or had not gamed in a long time. It felt like Nintendo Switch activated a lot of non-gamers. And I think PlayStation 5's marketing has been so strong that a lot of people who have had a Switch for 5 years probably were like, oh, I'll see what the PS5's about. I think those people jumped over.
I mean, for me, it's always been about the games. They've got Wolverine, they got Spider-Man 2. I mean, I do think it's probably going to. I think it's going to be. I think they are going to overtake PS4 numbers eventually. But right now, given the last couple of years and the difficulties in trying to get consoles to people, in general, I think it's been pretty strong for them, and they'd be pretty encouraged with what they've seen with their marketing numbers, or their sales numbers. I think they're going to have a good couple of years.
When you factor in the shortages, the economic uncertainties and such, for it to be that close to PlayStation 4 worldwide numbers is impressive. You can't take away the achievements that the PlayStation 5 has, hit at this point. As for if it will hit the PlayStation 4, it's really going to come down to the Western markets. And if the US and Europe continue to stick with the PlayStation 5, I don't know if the PlayStation 5 will necessarily hit the sales figures of PlayStation 4 in Japan, because it doesn't seem as though Sony is prioritizing Japan when it comes to hardware shipments. They have been increasing as the supply kind of booms for them, but it's still minimal. I think this past week they sold 51,000 PlayStation 5s in Japan, which is among some of
It'll be
its
telling when
highest.
Final Fantasy comes out.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 16 will be a
Consoles.
very telling moment, especially if they pivot and ship a lot of units to the region for that. So if, let's say PlayStation 5 can open north of 150,000 units when Final Fantasy 16 hits, that's promising. But the Western performance has been admirable, and they're showing a lot of growth, and that's largely because production has caught up. They have systems to put on shelves, and if they can keep this up, there's no telling what the PlayStation 5 is going to do. This year, it looks as though Sony's going to have maybe a slow year in terms of Sony published output for first-party titles. But Spider-Man 2 is a mammoth release. It's going to sell tens of millions of copies. It's going to move a lot of hardware. They're building a nice evergreen library. God of War Ragnarok, Ghost of Tsushima, Uncharted 4, Lost Legacy. There's a lot of games that people can already revisit and get
Third-party marketing is good
discounted.
too. Resident Evil 4 and Hogwarts Legacy, big titles for marketing.
Silent Hill 2,
Yeah.
Oh
Final
yeah.
Fantasy 16. They're going to lean on those third-party timed exclusives in 2023, and that's going to drive in a lot of people. And it almost has shade of the PlayStation 2 era at this point.
The hardware expansion for PSVR 2, though, we don't think that would really push it. That's more about people who already have it, who are interested in VR. Like, that wouldn't push consoles.
No, I don't think anyone's out there who's looking to buy a PlayStation 5 for VR 2. It's a companion piece if you already own the hardware.
Not bad. Like I said, going over to the Discord queues. Nothing else for the financials. Well, on Max's point, actually, from
I
the
had
Discord
stuff to
queues,
say, but I got a health bar for my throat, so
we need you back tomorrow because it's gonna be a
type
weird
it.
edit. But yeah, on Max's point about the new gamers, we did have a Discord queue based on Sony's financial report. How many PlayStation 5 owners do you think are completely new to gaming? I mean, you brought up the idea of, I guess, the Switch bringing people in and then moving upward, I guess, to another system later on. Do we think that's even like a number we could probably discern from those, what they've released?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think there is a lot of new gamers, but I think it's always about. I like the term that you said, escalation, because that's the way it feels like. Because I bet a lot of people, almost everybody, works on a computer now or has a computer. So I bet a lot of people probably start with like indie games on Steam or Cookie Clicker, Stardew Valley, and then they're like, oh, well, let's see how good graphics can be. And hard marketing pushes like God of War Ragnarok are getting them into it. So I feel like the actual completely new gamers starting with PlayStation 5, I would be shocked if it's above like 5%.
All right. Another Discord queue. What new and returning features would you like to see in Spider-Man 2?
New feature. There's talks that it's going to have co-op. I think by far that's my biggest hype. The new teaser they released a couple days ago was for showed both the Spider-Man swinging around at once. So I do think it's going to have co-op, and honestly, I think that would be the coolest of all of Spider-Man with a friend.
Be a little like a 3D separation anxiety with the whole Venom type situation
Yeah.
in the background. It'd be nice.
Or if the boss fights fundamentally play different, if there's two players, which games have done in the past, of not just doubling health bars, but maybe give us more enemies. I mean, symbiote making extra minions or something. I don't know.
I think that should make it like Elden Ring, where there's no difficulty settings. You just
level up and
walk
get your
in and
ass kicked until
get your ass kicked until you can figure out how to beat the game.
put points into stats, not knowing really what they do at first.
Yep.
Just accidentally stumble upon Venom early in the game. He just destroys you.
That's right. But you can skip around him, and fight the lesser bosses and stuff, and come back.
I support this. I like that idea.
Soul Spider. People hail Pierre Hines for fixing the Master Chief Collection, but Halo 2 is still broken. I can't get through co-op campaign on PC without the game crashing literally 100% of the time. Does anyone in the cast know a fix or mods for this game?
Halo 2?
Apparently, yeah. According to him, Halo 2 just crashes all the time when he plays it.
On PC.
I mean, I would
On
just
PC specifically.
I would just get the OG version, play that.
Just uninstall.
Better version.
I haven't had issues on the Xbox, so I don't know.
All right. Who's ready for Hogwarts Legacy? It's one of the questions.
I'll check it out this week, but I was going to check it out as someone who doesn't know much about Harry Potter and just see it as a game. I think there's a lot of rose-tinted glasses for Harry Potter, so
Yeah.
I'll just look at it as someone who's just, okay, this is a game, so we'll see how this is.
There's been some leaked gameplay going around that looks really bad, so I've decided not to buy it. And also, I honestly hated the last couple of those Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Like, all the new Harry Potter movies have just been so terrible that I'm just like, they're really weirdly bad. They're like really bad. So that kind of made me be like, all right, even if this game is great, I don't think I care.
The wand shoots magic. That's all I know.
Yeah, I'm not playing Harry Potter because I have zero interest in it. Simple as that.
Yep, same.
Yeah, I have no love or
up to me.
care or knowledge of Harry Potter, so I'm
John.
I played Saints Row, and I played Forspoken.
You're just on a trend of bad games.
Have you beaten any of those games?
Yeah, beat Saints Row.
You did?
Yeah. I told you about the jet ski moment with DMX and everything.
Oh,
towards
that's
the end.
right.
That's the highlight of the game.
I'm like 8 hours into Forspoken, so.
You know, Forspoken.
That's
has a
what did it to
DMX
your
sequence,
voice.
too. You start fighting like a golem, and does X go and give it to you? It's like, holy shit, this game's awesome now.
Oh, yeah, it would make that game better.
I'll give
Have
it a
any of
fair
you-
shot. I will.
Have any of you read the Bloodborne book series?
No.
There's books.
Mm-mm.
But I was at a tabletop game store the other day and I saw a Bloodborne board game. Do you guys
Yeah.
know about this?
No.
I
Is it
do-
okay? Is it a Bloodborne board game or is it another board game themed in Bloodborne? That happens a lot.
I will send you the photos I took of this and you can tell
I
me.
think it's like Jumanji when
It's
you
like
start. it actually kills
Bloodborne
you.
Monopoly or something.
No, I don't think so. It
I
wasn't
I have
Bloodborne
seen-
Monopoly.
Candy
I've
Mountain
seen that in
Bloodborne
VG.
themed.
I've seen that, and I've seen the Dark Souls board game, and I've heard both of them are kind of bad. They're like, it's not just that they're hard; it's that they're just not very playable board games.
Mm.
Which is weird. I recently played the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 board games, and they're brilliant. They're so good, they're shocking.
And John, you've got a ruined voice. I don't know how much you can elaborate on this. Can Spawn elaborate on his Switch treadmill usage?
The Switch is on the treadmill. I walk, and I have the split Joy-Cons, and then I just play stuff.
I did that. I love that.
Usually
I play I do Slay the Spire, because every run of Slay the Spire takes an hour.
I've been playing Fire Emblem. So about 13 hours on it so far. So I just play it when I'm on the treadmill. It's a treadmill game.
Yeah,
Did it today.
That might actually just be a whole Bloodborne game. I don't know. I'll have to take a look at it. But yep, that's all the Discord cues. That's all the topics. I think Nate's got to get moving here. But so let's take it out. Nate, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on YouTube at Nate the Hate and on Twitter at Nate the Hate, followed by the number 2. Right now, MVG and myself have an episode going over our predictions for Nintendo in 2023. Will Metroid Prime 4 show up? Could we see a price drop? Will Nintendo Selects make a return? F-Zero? Find out in the episode, and we will have an episode next week with the possibility of 2.
Did you tell people there's a direct in your podcast?
I said by the time you're listening to this episode, a direct will air in the next couple of days.
Oh, okay.
All right. MVG, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Modern Vintage G and YouTube Modern Vintage Gamer. Did a video about Dolphin on the Xbox with the new user interface. Can't really talk about it yet, but there are some really cool updates coming out with the Series S with emulation. So check out the channel because there's some things happening. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Max?
YouTube.com/Dreamcast guy. I reviewed a bunch of games recently, including Forspoken, Dead Space. Go watch that. I have some big reviews coming up here this month. I'm getting dental surgery on Monday, so I'm not sure that there might be less videos next week. We'll see how much I can talk.
That's exciting.
I'm scared. I'm scared out of my mind.
No, I don't.
You'll be
hide
fine.
some stuff. You'll be all right.
It'll be fine, man.
Let's clap it up for Evan. Let's clap it up for Evan.
Hell yeah.
Did good.
Good job,
Evan.
You can find me doing these or editing Newswave or on my own channel.
Yeah, check out your channel. You got some cool stuff going on there.
Specifically tabletop games, if you're interested. Right now it's Kill Team, so if you're interested in the Games Workshop Kill Team games, I've been trying to post stuff there. And then, of course, John at right here, Spawnwave Media, hopefully with a voice on Monday morning.
We'll see. It'll be like this. I'll just be like Snake or Steve-O.
I'll voice him over for the next one. It'll be great. It'll seem a little weird.
I can use the
That
speak
would actually
and
be
spell.
hilarious.
Yeah, right. I'll just lip sync and Evan just talk.
Yeah, and I was just like,
All right. Good stuff. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you guys next time.